The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson. Well, I am joined once again by one of your favorites, Dr. Emma. Emma, welcome back.
Hi, Rebecca.
And we're also joined today by Dr. Peter Stiffell. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Well, it's an honor for me to have both of you here at the same time. This is a big deal to be talking about Mary with you two.
I should have said it's an honor. It's an honor to be here with you guys.
Well, as many times.
And by the way, Peter, congratulations on your doctorate. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It's finally
Thank you
here.
so much.
Congrats.
I know, right? Thank you.
It's amazing. Well, as many times as Emma has been on this show, we've talked a lot about Mary and Catherine of Aragon. And one of my favorite little tidbits that Emma taught us was about how Catherine and Mary were taught to paint. Right, Emma?
Yes. Well, there's evidence that we can think that would be the case because in the Tudor court, there are some women involved in the arts that we know about. Chiefly during the time of Catherine of Aragon, a Flemish woman named Susanna Horenboot. And she didn't come alone. This was a workshop, a family group that came from Flanders over to England in some time we didn't know before. Now we think it could be as early as 1520, or at least they were involved with the King and Queen of England. And this is part of a flow of artists that Peter can talk more about in the reign of Mary, but there's always a flow from the end of the 15th century into the 16th century of Flemish artists into England because Flanders is a center of production of Renaissance art, and the English monarchs like this art, so they recruit these people. During the reign of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, we have evidence of the first women that are involved, and they will go on to be other women, like, for example, Lavina Turnlake. So the English court is at the forefront of this because, for example, Lavina Turnlake was the first woman to be appointed official court painter in Europe. So this is how important this is. So, I mean, Catherine of Aragon and her daughter Mary like to do many things, and I'm sure they did paint with these women. So I'm sure Peter has some interesting ideas about this too. Peter, what do you think?
I'm just imagining him now just painting. That's an easel. It's like, what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I never knew that. And now, it now makes so much sense because obviously, if you're surrounded by these artists the whole time, and especially with Lavina later on, think how it must have been really sophisticated. And I'd be interested to see what they painted, and if any of it does actually survive. Obviously we may never be able to tell. But yeah, that's put a whole new dynamic now on their relationship with art and patrons and everything. It's really interesting. So thank you for telling me that.
Yes. So the reason why I suggested this in that episode with Rebecca was because, and this is a very known letter that Catherine of Aragon writes to Cardinal Wolsey when the Scottish have invaded in 1513 and she's regent in England, and Wolsey is in France with Henry, telling him that she had been very busy making banner standards and other things like that. But when we go to the accounts, these are all painted. Because it has been suggested before that she could have embroidered them.
Yeah,
but they were all painted. And some of them have coat of arms of Spain, of England, but some of them have things like the Trinity. So these are paintings, religious paintings that would go on banners as St. George and the Dragon, I'm sure, who was a patron both of England and of Aragon. So I'm sure that this was, and at this point is when the first Italian painters are recruited, amongst which there could be a woman named Alice too. She's a very shadowy figure, and she only appears in the records a couple of times. But the other time that she appears is in late 1520s in a set of payments that are linked to Mary's, the dissolution of Mary's household from Ludlow. And that's something I wanted to ask you about, Peter. Have you delved into Mary's years in Ludlow as Princess of Wales de facto?
Oh, it was tempting to do that. I thought I'd better not, just in case. But yeah, no, I mean, there's so much work that needs to be done on that. I know Melita Thomas has looked a little bit into that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, someone needs to really go into it because we've got the records, I think, most of them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But so it'd be really interesting, how did she actually, I mean, we know she was only a child, but even then she did, she had that experience, like I said on the previous one with diplomats when she was 5 or 6, didn't she? So she can do basic things. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to know as Princess of Wales what she actually did and how she interacted with these people and with artists and everything. No, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how many artists have you recorded roughly? You don't need to give us that painted Mary. I'm sure you have a few.
Yeah. So hang on. So obviously we've got Moore, we've got Eworth, Turlink, Gerlich Flick. That's 4.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, obviously Master John. That's 5.
The Horan Boots.
Horan Boot. Yeah. So that's 6.
Mm-hmm.
Holbein, obviously. Obviously. That's 7.
Those are major names too. Holbein, Moore. It's like.
And then when you actually go into like the legal documents, I mean, unfortunately, we don't know exactly who the Falaces were. Well, we know who the Falaces were. Whether or not they actually made the art or they commissioned someone to do the drawings and illuminations, that's still under debate. I think I do discuss that in the thesis. So so there's 2 or 3 patterns. So again, 2 or 3 more artists. So yeah, I would say it's at least double figures. Yeah, at least.
That's a lot of sittings for paintings and a lot of relationship to the painted medium, which was rising at this time. Especially, I always think about what of that experience with Antonis Moore would have been like. And when you look at Mary's portrait by Antonis Moore and you look at what he had done previously, there's a lot of Mary in that portrait because there's a change. I mean, what I believe you have not seen this painting in the flesh, Peter, yet?
No, I haven't.
We can't have that.
I must go and see it before I finish, and I never got round to doing it. But yeah, no, it would. I'd love to see it in the flesh because I'm sure you can see even more in the flesh than you can on these computers. It's I mean, I do love it. I used to hate it. I really did.
Oh, really? Why?
And no, because it was always it's really gloomy and doomy, and she's miserable, and and then this whole stupid thing about her just being a wife. So that's rubbish. But then it was actually when I went on the Prada website and they were talking about the restoration of it, and then you think, oh, she's actually smiling. She's the only monarch to smile in her paintings. And then obviously when I did my work, when I properly examined it, oh, she's wearing her wedding ring. And then you think, oh, she's not wearing the wedding ring in the rest of them. And then the jewels and the clothing. And then, you talk about the chair. And then you've got the pillar behind her. And she's sitting down. Well, now we know when it was painted, November, December. Of course she's sitting down because she's pregnant.
Whoa, Peter, what did you say? She was pregnant?
She was.
What would that child's name have been?
I think it would, if it was a boy, it would have been Henry, just for continuation and its legitimacy.
Henry the Ninth of England.
Yeah.
That's a thought. That's a thought.
If it was a girl, I mean, I'd be shocked if it wasn't Catherine.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I think she could have.
Or Isabella.
Yes.
I think Catherine would have been a stronger suit. Yeah.
I think Catherine.
Yeah, that would have been a different England altogether, right? Right. What do you think, Rebecca? If Henry the Ninth would have ruled England?
I'm still stuck on she was pregnant in that portrait. I think I had to pick my jaw up off the floor when Peter said that because I had never even considered that as a possibility.
Yeah.
Oh, if you look closely to the portrait, you can tell.
Yeah,
I think you can tell. Yes, and actually, she's trying to conceal it a little bit, like by standing with that posture that is quite stiff. But you can see the little bump in her belly.
Yeah, let me get up the evidence because I do talk about this in the thesis actually.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say, they'll start criticizing Mary now. But I said, oh no, actually, there's 2 ambassadors that talk about the symptoms and everything else.
Well, one of the things I always talk about this portrait is how for many centuries it's been said, oh, you can tell she's not very beautiful from this portrait and this and that. And I always try to explain to people, and I said this before the podcast, she's 37. She's not, if you look at the Master John portrait in 10 years prior when she's 28, she looks completely different. I mean, it's just, and then if she is pregnant in her early stage, then she's probably not feeling very well when she's wearing those kind of garments that are so tight to like, because this portrait, the thing about the tension about this portrait is it's not really, but it's a new type of portrait. She's a ruling monarch. She's not just a woman. She's not just a bride. She's a ruling monarch that's going to marry. So they have to represent her in a way that she's majestic. So that's why she's smiling, but not a lot. And the fact that she's smiling a little bit it's really intriguing, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah,
it's just a tiny
that whole
bit.
Relationship.
Do you think it's a reference or not to the Mona Lisa? Because I was thinking about this the other day.
Oh,
it would have been a known portrait at the time.
I mean, that'd be funny, wouldn't it? I doubt it. I think it's more to show her character, just seeping through a little bit.
Really? Yeah. Or is it to kind of entice a person to connect more with Mary? Look again in her face by looking. Oh, she is smiling. Then you look back in her eyes, and she does look like she has a story to tell just with her eyes. That's why definitely. I like more so much. And the reason why you have to go and visit it, Peter, you have to come on this tour that Rebecca and I are preparing, right, Rebecca?
Yes, it's in the works.
Rebecca's looking at the fights already. The reason why you have to go is because she's not alone. And she is in a room full of her relatives and other portraits by Anthony Small. And you can just see the connections between her and her relatives. So this is also a portrait to be displayed in the Spanish court in a certain way with other portraits as a symbol of Mary is part of the Spanish monarchy. She is going to be something that everybody forgets about, the next Queen of Spain. And she did become the Queen of Spain.
Exactly.
Out of America. She's actually the first English monarch to be proclaimed in America. Did you know that, Peter?
I assume so, yeah, because of obviously the Spanish lands, yeah. Yes. There was a I was looking at the Samancas actually, and there was a I can't remember what the document was for, but it was a proclamation to the South American. And I thought, oh wow, it's really interesting, But yeah, no, the whole Moore portrait is fascinating. And going back to Rebecca's point about the pregnancy, so I've just found the references. So there's discussions about during the correspondence that she had given birth to a lump of flesh, and this is about mid 1555, springtime. And we know that the French ambassador Noailles reports to Henri II that she'd suffered from a molar, so it's spelled like M-O-L-A. And when you actually understand this whole concept, what's a mole or what's a molar? Well, Karen Hearn's spoken a lot about this in her book about pregnancy.
Yes.
And, that's what they used to call dead fetuses or, things that children who hadn't come to term. So it's not a phantom. We know it's not, because everyone could see the signs of her being pregnant. You had the enlarged breast, you had the breast milk, you had stomach. So I actually spoke to a nurse who's a friend of mine. And, I don't know how we got into Mary, but we did. And I started talking about these symptoms. I was like, what do you think these symptoms are? And they said what she probably suffered was a I'm going to pronounce this wrong now, but a hydatidiform mole. So it is actually a medical condition. And you can only suffer from this if you are pregnant. So, I mean, we may need to have a disclaimer or something on this, but an embryo is formed, but unfortunately it's unviable. So when she does, when it does leave her, it does look like a lump of flesh, which is exactly what Niles and the other ambassadors do report. Whether or not that's rumor or if it's, I always think there's always a bit of truth in rumors. So you do have to start wondering, and we know, she wouldn't have made that up. And maybe she didn't say that she'd miscarried because of what happened to her stepmothers. How many of them said they miscarried, and look what happened to them?
Yeah.
Especially Anne Boleyn, so in some ways her execution did save her. So, because we know Mary hides away. She hides away during that whole time period. And then it's only, 6 months, 7 months later, she actually comes out. So you have to, so the first one, I don't think it was phantom. I think she was pregnant. Second time, it was probably, everyone always thinks it's the cancer that killed her. Well, we'll never know. And, and I don't think these whole terms, phantom pregnancy, well, we don't know if it's a phantom pregnancy. And why wouldn't you believe her? She obviously thought she was, so surely that's enough for us to think, okay, she was. And everyone else believed it, especially in the beginning. So, so yeah.
Well, something happened because she died.
Yeah, something happened.
Something happened. In the case, yeah,
and 1557 and 8.
I agree with you 100%, Peter. The first time Catherine Aragon miscarriages, she sends a letter to her dad saying, I didn't report it before, and I think they just want to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah.
And she mentions a reason why. They said in England, they're very superstitious about these things.
Exactly.
So, and the blame goes to the mother.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look what happened to
Anne. So it was the mother. So it was the mother who did something wrong. I think what happened between for Mary was, let's not forget, Philip was her cousin, her second cousin. So they were related by blood. They were closely related by blood. In the Spanish monarchy later on, the descendants of Philip II had problems up to Charles II, who couldn't close his mouth because he was so deformed that he didn't have any issue. What I think happened is she did get pregnant by Philip, and then that fetus was probably incompatible too. Because of their close relationship, blood related. And that just triggered something in Mary that eventually killed her. Because as you know, people know now, when you do have a miscarriage and you're not treated properly, that can lead to infection and other things. So I think that having a sex act with Philip triggered something in Mary, that incompatibility. First of all, because they were related, and then, of course, that, she did get pregnant. She did get pregnant, and then that eventually killed her. That happened to her mother until that happened to other women. With Henry VIII too. So she had it on both sides. So it's very normal. And Philip went on to have problems too. I mean, this is just, these people are closely related. Even before Henry and Catherine. I mean, Isabella of Castile has Lancaster blood. I mean, these are all connections that are too close. They're family members. These are family members, and there's an incompatibility. I do think that we should believe Mary, and when the ambassadors are reporting about this, there's no reason to believe it's not true. So the whole phantom pregnancy thing is just a strategy to say that she was crazy. Which is the way to annul women's power, is to say they were crazy, like it happened to her aunt, Juana of Castile, or happened to other women. And I mean, hysteria comes from uterus. So I mean, it's just a matter of, if you say a woman is crazy, and especially with something related to gynecology, then she can't think, she can't make decisions for herself. There's always a guy that's very smart lurking in the background, making decisions for her, which is not true. I think another myth is, I do think that their relationship probably did turn out a bit sour, but I think when they were married, they were very committed to that marriage, and the fact that she got pregnant means, because some people say, well, he wasn't very impressed with her. Well, that didn't stop him, right? Did it? Because they had a marriage like any other couple at the time. So I think there's just so many myths about Mary, right, Peter?
Definitely, there really are.
They're all
I have to also
negative.
remember, exactly, remember, she is 37 at this point as well. She's never had a man. So, obviously it's going to be more difficult. And Philip, well, he knows his duty
Yes.
to sire an heir. That's his main function.
But he speaks fondly of her. This
Yeah,
judging a relationship of someone, older woman with a younger man, and this
yeah,
is something that we still do nowadays.
yeah.
It's just it's not the typical thing, and she's in a position of power. The fact that I think they had a good president in their grandparents, because let's not
Yes.
forget they shared grandparents, Isabel, and Fernand. Um, I think that helped them a lot in their union and their marriage. And Peter studied
Definitely.
it in their image, right? In their conjoined
Yes.
image, is they
Yeah.
always
Yeah, exactly.
referencing that kind of image of, because it's not about president, because Isabel and Fernando were so powerful, right?
Exactly. I mean, they were called the second Isabel and Fernando. That is what they were. I mean, there's loads of references. I mean, Stephen Gardner talks about it. Nicholas Wotton, the French ambassador from England, talks about it. Like I said in the last podcast, there were even some Spanish ambassadors saying, "Oh, we don't like Philip and Charles, but we do like Mary. Why can't She was very much linked to Ferdinand and Isabella."
And I think people understood that a good wife and a good husband and vice versa, when they were monarchs like Isabel and Fernando, they complemented each other. They became a power couple. And I think
Exactly.
what these people were expecting is Mary and Philip to become a power couple. I think they just didn't have time.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, they didn't. If she'd lived just a few more years, even 10 years, we would have. I think we really would have seen that much. That's why a lot of people don't like the marriage anyway, because they say, "Oh, well, what did he actually do for England?" Well, if she'd lived longer, I think quite a lot. We would have benefited from the Spanish Empire. We didn't. There wasn't enough time, and him, leaving her after a few months. Well, how can you have more children if you're not here, Philip? Don't moan because you can't have any. Well, do your job.
Yes.
But then he obviously has his own troubles as well. He has to look after his father's empire. So,
well, and the thing is, people focus on the courtly affairs, like the marriage and the relationship and all that. But for example, one of the less profitable things that Henry VIII did for himself was marrying Anne Boleyn, for example, because that cut ties with all the Spanish Empire and all the things that, for example, the only reason that the English subjects were trading with people in Levant, in the Middle East, was because they were enabled to do that through the Spanish Empire. As soon as Henry marries Anne Boleyn, the King of Portugal cuts him short, and he's like, sorry, but no, you are an heretic, first of all. You have discarded the daughter of the most powerful monarchs in the world, the aunt of the emperor. The emperor, Charles V, sends a warning, who felt very bad, by the way, because all of this had happened to Catherine and Mary was because of him.
Yeah.
And he took the Antonissimo portrait of Mary with him to Yuste, to his final retirement. So this is how much he loved his cousin, who he had met in England, because he traveled to England several times. So Mary is so connected to the Spanish monarchy, and she is truly the daughter of Catherine of Aragon and the granddaughter of Isabella of Castile. This is referenced by Erasmus of Rotterdam in his dedication to Catherine of that book on matrimony that he dedicates to her, that she commissions and he dedicates to her in 1526, that has a frontispiece by Holbein. He references, so Mary has all the background to really be successful in her attempt to rule England as a woman for the first time. That's the reason why I think she's successful, is because of that background that her grandmother gives her, right? Yeah. I don't know if you think this is she always claims, I'm a daughter of Henry VIII, but the willpower that she has, the way she shows, when Lady Jane Grey is proclaimed, and she's like, she proclaims it herself, and she recruits an army and she goes to London. I'm like, this woman.
No, it's really interesting actually, because when I was looking through the National Archives, there's it's a warrant or something for whoever it was, but it's really weird because you have Jane's signature on one document, but then you have an exact copy of the same warrant, dated at the same time, and it's got Mary's signature.
Right.
And it's like, wow, it's crazy. And, you can tell people, whoever was supporting who, they'll think, oh, well, we'll send the same warrant to the same people just in case. But it's crazy. I mean, going back to the Moore portrait, I'm just looking at the provenance now. And, even after her death and after Philip's death, you can see that the Spanish royal family really do appreciate her because, I mean, it's just of where her portrait ends up being hung. It's all over the place. It goes to Madrid. It goes, it's in the royal palace. It's in the antechamber. It's in the main rooms. It's in the dining room. It's in the bedrooms. These are very quite private and public places. So, she obviously has an importance which they continue to honour.
It's always been important for the Prado Museum, that portrait. It's a key portrait. That's why that restoration was carried out, because and I'm so glad they did, because I think it just gave it a new life. I think, for example, you can see Mary's porcelain skin on it. You can see it's just so beautiful. We have to go and see it in Madrid, Peter. We can't have this anymore. We can't have this anymore. And then we'll have to fly to Boston to see Mary's copy, right?
Yes. So I'm looking at her copy now, and it was gifted to Sir Henry Jerningham in 1557. And they look like, they're the same portrait. Well, there's slight differences. So the first difference is in the Jerningham copy, there's no leaves on the flower. So that removes, is that symbolism? What does that mean? But the most significant omission is that there's no wedding ring. Why does her copy and the other English copy not have a wedding ring on? Or actually, bearing in mind, why is it only Charles V's copy of Moore has her wedding ring on? None of the others do.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's showing her independence. It's saying the marriage isn't important. It's me you got to focus on. And the jewels that she wears as well, it's a lot. I always get quite annoyed when people say, oh, it's La Peregrina, or it's the diamond that Charles and Philip sent her. Well, actually, there's 4 different jewels, which it might be. Probably can't go into it just today. But, each one has its own significance. Was it the English crown jewels, which existed? There was a very large diamond gifted to her by Ferdinand. So, there's that connection. And then you have the religious connection with the Mirror of France, which was on Thomas Becket's tomb. So there's more to this jewel than meets the eye, and it's not La Peregrina.
It's not La Peregrina, no. I know. Yes. We know it's not. About what you said before, I just thought of this. So the portrait was painted before she was married, right?
No. It
was painted after she was?
Yeah, because she's wearing her wedding ring.
Well, listen to this. The other versions don't have the wedding ring, right?
So what if the portrait was painted before the wedding and none of them had it? And then when Moore returned to Madrid and they were married, he added the ring to the version.
I don't think, no, because Moore came for the marriage though, didn't he? He didn't come before.
Yeah, but once they knew in Spain that the marriage had gone through, he might have added the ring. Because sometimes there's things that are added after. Just for example, a portrait, I'm thinking now of a portrait of, the portrait of Velázquez, the Meninas, the famous Meninas, the family of King Philip IV of Spain. Velázquez added his cross of Santiago after he became knighted as a. So my thought would be, did Moore paint the portraits before and then Moore added the ring after the wedding took place?
Well,
in Spain, once he had returned?
No, because the actual painting wasn't done until November or December 54. So she was
married already.
She was already married, and he came over with Philip.
Did Mary erase the wedding ring at some point from her own copy?
Well, or was it ever included?
Yes.
Because this was her personal copy. Obviously, yes, we'll send Charles the one. Oh, look, here's my wedding ring. And we know she was wearing it because she would always wear it.
Right.
So why not then depict that in the English copies?
Right. So in the English copy, I know that in the collection of her father, she had there was a portrait of Pope Julius II, a copy of the portrait by Raphael. That's the same size as that portrait of Mary. He's also sitting down. I suggested that they could have been displayed together. Was Mary's portrait not as a bride, but as something different? The rose is a bit different in color too, right? It's not exactly a red rose.
No, it's not a rose at all. I think it's a carnation or something.
It's a carnation.
I think so. I mean, you have to see. We have to really just go and look at these portraits to actually properly tell, because it's so difficult on the screen.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, it's not, because it just looks like a different flower.
It does look like a different flower. We have to do more work on this, Peter. I have
really
to call up the Prado Museum and be like, guys, you need us.
Yeah.
So interesting with one portrait, all the things art historians can talk about hours, just like the image or the flower, this and that and the other. But that's why it's such a captivating and important portrait. It's got so much symbolism. But then again, it's in a naturalistic style, so it looks like she's going to talk to you. So and then now it's displayed next to the portrait of her grandmother, Isabel. That was probably painted by a Flemish painter that was established in England that visited Spain in 1489. So that I tracked down to the collection of Charles I of England. So that stayed in England.
Yeah.
So if Charles I had it, that means that Mary had it.
Yeah.
When she was queen. So imagine she probably would have looked at that picture all the time. She did have the other bigger one of Isabella and the one of Fernando that are now in the Royal Collection Trust too.
Yeah.
So there was Spanish portraits all around.
No, yeah, definitely. It's probably her mother going around the gallery saying, "Oh, this is your grandparents. This is what you will become."
Right. Or maybe we should misbehave. She took her to see grandma and be like, "Hey, this is Nana going to tell you off if you don't do," because I'm sure. When I was studying Mary's education, and that's another very important point. I wanted to touch on that, but also I wanted to talk about one thing that in the previous podcast you did with Rebecca. Then we can go back to the education. I did want to bring this up. You mentioned how she is seen as this horrible person, yet she was probably the tutor who had the biggest heart, right?
Definitely.
And I think that's linked to the education. That's why I wanted to bring it up at the same time. And the manuals of the good leader that her mom commissioned for her and all of that. But I think you should refresh listeners why you said that, because I agree 100% with that statement that she was a very gentle soul, really.
Yeah, she really was. I think we should bring back Rebecca first before I go. Sorry, Rebecca.
Oh, there's a host in this podcast? Sorry, Rebecca.
I was just knitting a blanket. It's fine. Keep going.
Dr. Emma did it again. Talks nonstop.
No. I like it. I'm just here to facilitate you two. So. All of my questions are going to veer us off course. So, Peter, if you want to keep going on this topic, by all means, you sure can.
We're talking about Mary's humbleness, really. I know Rebecca liked these stories as well. Yeah, so there's a few occasions. Which one's the best? The best one's about the collier. So we think it's in 1556, 57 maybe. And Mary goes and visits Cardinal Pole in, where is it now? It's in London. Croydon, sorry. Yes, it's in Croydon, which is in London now. And there's this story by Jane Dormer, who's a lady in waiting. And she recounts that Mary went in disguise as a lady in waiting with everyone else. And she used to go and visit the local neighborhoods because she wanted to actually understand what was actually going on. She didn't like these big grand displays like her sister and father. She liked to go incognito. And anyway, on this one occasion, she goes and visits a collier and his wife. And for anyone who doesn't know what a collier is, it's sort of someone who deals with coal. So maybe a coal merchant, or even, he may have been a miner. We're not quite sure. But anyway, she goes and visits him. She shares a meal with him. So, very basic things. Has a sit down, have a nice chat. And she asks him, how's your family doing? What do you think needs improving? I know they have this discussion, and it comes on to his work, and he mentions that he hadn't been paid. I can't remember if it's not been paid a month or 3 months or whatever it was. It was, he hadn't been paid for quite a while. And she asks him, is this true, my friend? And he says, yes, madam. Anyway, she then says, I will go and talk to the Queen on your behalf. And if you come to the palace gates at 9 o'clock in the morning, payment will be waiting for you, because it's disgraceful that you haven't been paid by the Queen's men. Anyway, he said, oh, thank you so much, and I will come back in the next morning. She goes back to the palace, finds Rochester, who's her comptroller, so the guy who deals with her money and all that sort of stuff. And she belittles the man. She says, how dare you not pay my good people? Your job is to get these things done. It's disgraceful. Why haven't you paid him and his colleagues? Anyway, he starts making excuses, blaming someone else for not doing it. She walks off, and then Rochester tells Dormer, how did she know we hadn't paid him? And Dormer goes and tells him, well, she asked him. And he said, what do you mean she asked him? Well, she wasn't just sitting on a phone all day. She actually went and visited her people,
right.
Found out the real problems from the horse's mouth, because people would never tell her the truth. So the only way to do it would be in disguise. And we don't know what happened, but I hope that the guy got paid. And then he suddenly realised, once he looked at the coins, looked at the portrait, and then remembered that conversation with that nice lady he had while they were eating porridge or whatever it was. Oh, wow, I've just spoken to the Queen. And we were both treated as normal people. It's crazy. So I always say that Mary did the first royal walkabout, because she did. She just went house to house or whatever, and there's occasions of her providing education for boys and girls, for apprentices. If she met families with 5, 6, 7 children and they were poor, she would, help them, whether that's financially or, like I said, giving them employment somewhere. And it's these stories that lots of people don't seem to remember.
Yes. Rebecca, do you think, what do you think of this story? Do you think that Mary arrived there and was wearing a cloak, and then she was like, I'm the Queen, and took it off in front of a controller?
She put her crown on.
Put a crown on and was like, how dare you not pay my people?
No, I love that story. When Peter told that story the last time we spoke, I really appreciate hearing stories like that, and how Mary gave back. And I have a question, and I don't know if it's a dumb question or not. Maybe I should know the answer to this. But was there such a thing as charities back then? I mean, other than giving people things, was there a foundation or anything that she would have started?
Yeah, well, I mean, the church was charity. That's why you have, when you have the dissolution of the monasteries, and then the government start complaining, oh, why are all these poor people all on the streets? Why are they all beggars? Well, that's because you destroyed the charity, mate.
Yes.
There were foundations. I can't name any on the top of my head.
The Savoy Hospital in London, for example, was constructed during her time. And this was all linked to her faith, which was linked to the Devotio Moderna, that idea that, remember that her mother belonged to the lay branch of the Franciscan movement, which meant that it's about being close to the poor people, not the people from above. It's about following, and that's why Mary did that. Why she would go incognito is like Christ would do. It's imitating the life of Christ and the life of the Virgin. This is what that new, when they say Catherine and Mary are part of the old faith, and that's got nothing to do with the Catholic faith. Was at the forefront of renovation so people like Erasmus of Rotterdam or Juan Luis Vives, who created these educational manuals for Mary, because she was the first English princess to be educated with a Renaissance program and to be really taught how to be ready to rule if she needed to. And all these manuals are Christian manuals, they're Catholic manuals. It's just that because after her death, her sister, who's a Protestant, becomes queen. It's all been overshadowed as the old. You have to say that one is the old and the other one's the new. They got nothing to do. This is a revolution in religion, really, that's happening in the 16th century, both in the Protestant world, obviously, but both in the Catholic Church too. And Catherine was in the forefront of this, and Mary is in the forefront of this too. And she's applying those ideas to her own queenship. That's why she goes personally to visit this person instead of sending someone like another ruler would do. For example, one of the books that Juan Luis Vives created for her, only for her, not the education of the Christian woman that he created for all Christian women, one that he created just for her was a book with short phrases that Mary could repeat that had teachings behind them. So it would be a short phrase, 3 or 4 words, and these are based on books that were written in the antiquity. And she would repeat that phrase, and then there was a short story, a moralizing story about that phrase that would help her to make good choices when she would become a ruler. And one of them became her motto, because it's Veritas Temporis Filia, which is slapping Henry VIII in the face, because it's truth is daughter of time, which means when you choose that on a book that your mom commissioned for you when you become queen, is saying, I was a legitimate heir all along, and then that's why I am successful now. Let's put this in the stone, Veritas Temporis Filia, for everyone to see, if they know Latin, of course. But, at this point, the English court was a highly educated court already because of the time of Henry VIII and all the revolution of the introduction. Think about Thomas More and people like that. So it would have been, imagine those people who would have known Henry VIII and then had a new queen, Mary, in 1553, that is plastering everything with Veritas Temporis Filia and pomegranates again. Oh, yes, the time. That would have been a great time to be around. And also, the other reason why I was saying that Mary, in spite of the fact that everybody's like, well, she's called Bloody Mary for a reason, this thing about her being gentle is you can see that in other times. When Lady Jane Grey is imprisoned, she has a hard time to sign that death sentence. She has a very hard time to do that. And everybody's like, you need to do it. You need to do it because of what happens. When she introduces the Inquisition, that's why people are burned at the stake. She has a very hard time she wants to implement in a way that it's legal, they can recant, they can come back to the Catholic faith. I think they're given 3 or 4 chances to recant before they're sentenced to death. Which is horrible, obviously, and we need. But other rulers were doing the exact same thing. Edward VI did that. Elizabeth I did that later on. This was just a brutal time. Yeah. So I think to focus on that and not focus on the things that Mary really learned to be a ruler that would always think of the common good. That was what those manuals they distilled was, because you're a woman, you need to be good in a different way. Then you're not going to be the military leader that kills everyone. You need to be a gentle, motherly figure to your people. And that Peter studied that very well in the study of her symbolism and the way she presents herself and the construction of her self-image with words, like her famous speech, right, Peter, that you wrote, that you read out last time. It was wonderful. As the mother figure of England, I think that's why Mary should be remembered, for being so smart to be able to bring those things together. The problem was that obviously after her death, there was a change, and all the books and things written during the reign of Elizabeth were obviously not in favor. But this is what Isabel of Castile did with her predecessor. This was common too. This is not just Elizabeth I. This is just the way to... Yeah. She had a dubious claim to the throne. I mean, look what happened to her mother. Yeah. So it's just a brutal time.
I feel like I'm glad you brought up Elizabeth, because I have some input in this conversation today.
Oh, come on, Rebecca. Tell us about it.
No. I am just curious. We talked about Mary's behavior with Lady Jane Grey, and we have to, I think, also talk about the imprisonment of Elizabeth under Mary's reign as well. And I think I would like both of your input on why you think she did it and what she envisioned the result being, if it were different or if it was just a scare tactic. What do you guys think that was all about?
Oh, Peter wants to answer this one.
I think it was a scare tactic. She would never have actually killed her. Because not only is, all right, you're my sister, but politically it would have been ridiculous. And she would have lost so much support if she had. But then we also have to sort of think, Elizabeth wasn't just a victim here. What she knew, what she didn't know, we don't know. But you'd think after having this experience as a younger woman, think 40 years later, she's doing the same thing to Mary Queen of Scots. You'd think she would have learned, maybe, I don't understand Elizabeth's logic in any of this. But yeah, no, I don't. Mary wouldn't have actually killed Elizabeth. Everyone wanted her to, but she's smarter than that. She's not that stupid, surely.
Well, I have to concur with Peter, but I do want to say, I think we do know that Elizabeth, at least the what I've read, and I think what's been written recently, is that she did know. She just didn't act on it, right? Yeah. Well, that's a form of betrayal, a pretty bad one, especially when that is going to mean that your sister is going to be killed, because a plot against you, a plot against the monarch, means the death of the monarch. Let's not forget about that. Okay, that's what Richard III found in. I mean, the presidents were there. They were not very far away. So plotting against a king or a monarch means you're plotting to kill them. If Elizabeth knew this and she didn't act on it, she was betraying her monarch, and foremost, she was betraying his sister, who, I mean, she was her heiress. Elizabeth walked into London with Mary the day that she was like, this is the next one if I don't have a kid. And that's the way it was finally done. So I think she was just extremely hurt, and she wanted to teach her a lesson. I think she probably thought, she's young, she's been influenced by, it's difficult, I get it, I've been there, I know what it's like to be under this kind of pressure. You're going to think about it for a little bit in the tower, maybe. I wonder, was that very nice? No, because that place is scary, but
I wonder, 16th century. Did Mary think about, and of course we don't know this, but maybe Peter has some insight too. Did Mary have any thought to how it would affect Elizabeth mentally, knowing that her mother was in the tower and died? I mean, it seems cruel when you think about it that way. And what I've learned so much recently from you, Peter, is she didn't seem to be such a cruel person, but to do something like that to Elizabeth seems cruel.
Yeah. I mean, she had to show her a lesson. And the fact is, she was released on her mother's anniversary. It's all mind games. And you have to remember, yes, you're my sister and I forgive you, but you still acted against me and I am the monarch. So just remember your place. Because, obviously she wanted the child herself, but, maybe she already knew that she wouldn't have any. So it's like, just wait your turn. Just allow me to do what I need to do. And hopefully we can convince you to convert and to actually understand what the true faith is. Because, Elizabeth didn't know any better. She wasn't brought up a Catholic. So maybe Mary was trying, here's the time for you to think about what you've done. And as any good child, think on your punishment and hopefully be a better person afterwards.
Well, imagine that conversation between the two sisters when Mary walks in and she's like, did you know about this?
Yeah.
And she would have been like, and she was like, you knew about this? I mean, do you understand what this means? This means that I could have been killed. I am your monarch. It's not like nowadays, and these are not regular people. Why did you do that? I'm sure that Mary was just outraged at the possibility after everything I've done for you. Because I mean, Mary took Elizabeth under her wing for many years, and considering the circumstances of Elizabeth's birth, that has a lot to say about Mary and her capability to look past beyond those things, right? Also, you said, what kind of mental impact? I think Mary was trying to teach her a harsh lesson, but she did release her. Not Mary, Queen of Scots, did not have the same end, right?
Right.
So I think it's not to say that Mary's good and Elizabeth is bad. It's to say that we've been told certain things that maybe we need to reassess. I don't think Mary was perfect, but I don't think Elizabeth was perfect either. And the evidence and the facts show that they were both real people with different personalities and different outcomes in life and different. But above all, in terms of Mary, I think she needs to be put in her right place in history, which is a trailblazing, very brave, courageous place for a woman in England after seeing how your father was chopping heads left and right, and after having a strong disagreement with your brother and seeing what he's doing, for example, to the Catholics in your country, in your kingdom, to then rise above that and say, this throne is mine, and I'm going to take England to a new glorious time. So reactivate the Spanish alliance. Basically, she was trying to bring back the glory days of Isabella and Ferdinand, of that alliance that England had with Spain. The thing is that, like, history's works like that. She only had 5 years. That's not enough to show the potential of a reign, of a full reign like Elizabeth had or like her father had. Right? I think that's the problem with Mary. She was cut short, and then there was a lot of propaganda against her really quickly. So, we need to work on rehabilitating her image, because she was a very important woman for English history, I think.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what else you guys want to talk about?
Well, I have a little announcement to make, and I'm very glad to do it in the podcast because this is my favorite podcast. So,
I paid her to say that.
Yes. By the way, I didn't get my transaction, so.
Oh, it's coming. I got lost in the mail, probably.
No, but I did sign a contract for a book on the artistic patronage of Mary, a collective book in which Dr. Peter Stiffell will be participating. It is the first book that will delve into Mary's relationship to art, to artistic patronage, to the artist that she, all those things that we've been talking about, and how she is a pivotal figure in the Renaissance in England, really. And we need to start to think about her in those terms, right? In the terms that we can really see her when we see Master John's rendition in the National Portrait Gallery in London, which she commissioned, by the way.
Which is £5.
It cost her £5. £5. That's a lot of money. She needed it for her new wonderful palace that her dad built for her when she came back to court in 1544. That time, which is a time that needs to be reassessed, because she becomes really important in the court of Henry VIII as a 28-year-old woman that has her own views and ideas and is active in his court. So this book will delve into all these things, and obviously we'll talk about the Antonis More portrait, our favorite. Well, Peter, you have to confess, is that your favorite? Which is your favorite right now? He's the expert, so whatever Peter says.
I don't know. There's so many. My favorite changes every day. I do like the Harnjeweth one.
Oh,
I do like the miniatures, because she has a few miniatures.
Yes.
I do like the Woburn Abbey one.
Yes.
I think he's just naming. Peter's just naming them all right now.
That's all going to change when he goes to Madrid and he sees Mary in the flesh next to all her relatives, and he just becomes obsessed again, all over again, with that portrait, and finds out everything about that ring that I can't stop thinking about now. Why is she not wearing that ring? Oh, why is she wearing the ring in that one, right?
Mm,
She's wearing
yeah.
the spousal ring in that one and not in the others.
Mm.
That's gonna haunt me, Peter. Thank you.
There's a nice one at Windsor Castle as well,
Oh,
which is at Hampton Court at the moment. I'm not sure if it still is or not because it's only on a loan at the minute. But yeah, that's lovely. And I never used to like it. It's only when I saw it in person up close, I think, ooh, yeah, she's wearing these lovely gloves and she's holding a book of some sort, and
Is
it's
that
got her initials on tapestry. It's been wonderful.
is that
mm.
one that we can see online, or is that one that you can only see in person?
Yes, no. If you go on the Royal Collection website,
Okay.
and
Oh,
just
yes.
write Queen Mary the First or something, and
The
yeah,
Royal
it's
Collection website is my favorite place on earth. It's just a wonderful website. Please, people, check it out. It's a great place to find out about all these things in Mary and the Tudors. It's a great resource, and it's the most important private collection in the world. So I mean, they've got a thing or two. I think that Peter is just wants to do a tour of his own on Mary.
yeah, we'll just go around. Let's go.
Sign me up, Peter. I'll come. I'll come. But you have to make sure by the end you have a favorite. You named like 25 portraits right now.
Well, I do like the coins actually. The coins are sort of my favourites because
The
you've
coin
got
from
this.
5053 when she's wearing her hair down.
Yeah,
She looks
her
like a
lovely
goddess. Yes.
yeah, her goddess, her Roman or Greek. Oh, I love it.
Her goddess era in 1553. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and in the Lavina Turmeric Coram Reggae, she's wearing her hair down too.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
wears her hair down in all of those sort of documents.
And then you can see how long her hair really was, because we tend to, in the Antony's more her hair's pinned up or whatever, but in those, you see how their hair was down to their waist, and Catherine Aragon's hair too. It's incredible. I would have loved to brush Mary's hair. Oh, that would have been nice. I would have done great in the Tudor court.
I would have loved to brush her hair. That was the most random thing that you said on this entire episode.
Just to think about it, she did have very nice. They all had very nice colored hair.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have been nice to just brush their hair.
You can brush my hair anytime.
Okay. Okay. Are you a Queen of England? I don't think so.
In my head, I am.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, you better talk to Queen Camilla about that.
I know.
Oh, well, yes, that's true. That's true.
This is blasphemy over here. Oh man, they're not
In
gonna.
America, we say the most random things.
I love episodes where we just pick a topic and we go with it, because I never know where the episode is going to go. And of course, we could talk about this for 3 hours, but I think today I would like to wrap up this episode. And I think I would like each of you to tell me what it is you would like the listeners to remember about Queen Mary. Peter, you're first.
I'll go first. Oh, one thing. She knew how to present herself in art, and we have to remember that she was our first Queen Regnant, and following her experiences through her mother, grandmother, and her father, she portrayed England's first queen.
Perfect.
What can I say now after that? What can I say after that? I don't think I can say anything else other than she paid £5 for a portrait in 1544. And as far as we know, that's the first commission of a portrait by a woman made in England. So she's the first in many things, and in very many important things. And this portrait is in the National Portrait Gallery in London. So I invite you, because I had seen it online and all that, but when you see things in the flesh, they change. I am in love with this portrait since I saw it in the National Portrait Gallery in London. So you should go, because they're going to have an exhibition coming up on the lives of the wives of Henry VIII, but you can also visit the children of Henry. Everybody's there. Everybody's in the National Portrait Gallery. So check it out this summer. I think that would be a good takeaway from this episode. Mary needs more attention, so go and visit her in London.
We'll give her all the attention she deserves. And
you can go to London, Madrid. She's everywhere. Boston. She's an international queen.
And that 1544 portrait is one of my favorites as well. So I cannot wait to see that one in person when I visit this summer. So excited. I can't wait. Well, Dr. Peter, Dr. Emma, Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
Until next time, everyone.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.